group that went to the Indiana State Sanatorium on June 1st. I went to Whispers Estate with Jazz and Hale and Paige last year, and then this year I was lucky enough to be assumed that I was going to go to the Sanatorium this year. By the time Jazz asked me if I wanted to go, Paige had already written my name on there and been like, yeah, going. So last year it was very much a, hey, I just kind of want to fuck around and find out. And I have been wanting forever to get more involved with it. So this was a perfect opportunity with someone that I knew, that I trusted, and that was willing to let me just fuck around and find out. And then this year I was hoping to kind of build on the experiences I had last year and see how this one was different, see like what, having done it before, how that changed the experience. I think the best description is I'm into spooky shit and I wanted to experience more, and I really like the group, so it was really nice to be invited and to be kind of scooped up. I did not know anything at all about the Indiana State Sanatorium except what was on their very brief introduction on the website. I'm familiar with institutions, institutionalization, and skilled nursing facilities, but I didn't know anything about this place specifically. I was not able to do the tour with the rest of the group because I had to work. So by the time I got there, Jazz and Hale and Paige had already seen the facility and kind of decided where Three Kings would be, where the Middlemen would be, and where the Seance would be. We set up Jazz in the steam tunnels, myself on the first floor of the admin building, another middleman, Holly on the second floor of the administration building, and then the Seance on the third floor. A lot of the offices on my floor had caution tape across them, which they said that we could go in, they just do it for larger groups. maybe not the best idea for me by myself. And then my area was connected via hallway to the nursing home portion of the grounds.
That way, I'm not going down. We went down there earlier. It's like the old folks home and then the mental hospital, maybe is what they said. But just crossing that threshold there, it's a very different energy.
Hey, Butter. As I was middlemanning, Three Kings was very intense sounding. For the Three Kings ritual, Jasmine is set by herself in the dark, tied to a chair in front of a series of 3 mirrors and a candle. And her job is to essentially act as, I think my partner phrased it as live bait, to draw whatever negative entities are in the building. So, and there are basically 2 types of spiritual energy, right? There are things that were never alive in the first place, entities, and there are spirits that were alive but are now deceased. Essentially have her act as a filtration device. Anything that's there, drawn to her first. If it gets past her, it comes to me. I'm walking by myself, talking, moving, attracting attention. Anything that gets past me should go to the second middleman who's doing the same thing, walking by herself, moving around, attracting attention. Only then should anything be able to, after it passes all these layers, should anything be able to interfere with the seance itself. So my middlemanning experience was very different between the Sanatorium and Whispers. Whispers, I almost felt more comfortable in. So personally, I work in disability advocacy I work for a family-led grassroots disability advocacy organization. And institutions, institutionalized places, are places with a lot of sadness, pain, loss, grief. Indiana itself has had a terrible track record with the way that we as a state have treated people with disabilities. We, as a state, passed a law in 1905 that restricted marriage for people with disabilities, as well as other undesirables. Habitual drunkards was one of them. In 1907, Indiana actually passed the first forced sterilization eugenics law. It was repealed in 1921. It was declared unconstitutional in 1921, and then they passed another one in 1927. That one stayed on the books until 1973, I believe. It wasn't until the 1950s that people with disabled family members or children really pushed back against the idea that they should be sent away, that it's better if they're removed from the home, if they're sent to institutions, which were essentially places of incarceration or removal for people with disabilities. Even now, we use skilled nursing facilities as institution lights, essentially, where people with disabilities and people with conditions of aging are sent so that their families essentially don't have to deal with them. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people who were in nursing homes or who were in institutions were very loved, and they were told that this is the best way to help their family, this is the best way to support them. But all it did was break up families, remove people from natural supports, and disappear them.
Keep coming back to these cards. To the birthdays. To the letters. Just, I love you. Did they ever get to see them? Did they ever get the cards? Did they ever get to know that people thought about them? That they love them? Did Warren know? Did Aunt Johnny know? They should have.
This is like the Indiana State Sanitarium, like Central State Hospital, like the State Hospital in Evansville, are places with a lot of pain in them. And being in a place like that, knowing the history of just the way that we treat people is difficult for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people. So middlemaning and just kind of stream of consciousness, interacting with the location, with the place, with the items left there, it was really kind of a sobering experience. And I think when you listen to Three Kings and when you listen to the audio from the seance, you hear and you feel and you see a lot of that pain and loss and sadness come through on all accounts. It was much more emotionally difficult than I was expecting it to be. And I think that I wasn't necessarily prepared for it. I think that if we do other spaces like this in the future, that I'll be better equipped for it. But it was a raw experience. I haven't, like, since we listened to it there, I haven't listened to it again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I could. Just because, like I said, I cried for most of the rest of the night. Like, I cried listening to Three Kings into the seance. I cried when we were doing, like, just walking through, like, the nursing home area when Jordan was doing Spirit Box, like, and I wasn't even sad at that. Like, I didn't feel sad. I just couldn't stop crying. I was like, this is awful. This is like being a 16-year-old girl again. Like, I remember these emotions. I don't like them. As far as, like, whether the question of, like, if I made myself sad, or if, like, just the knowledge of what happened, probably, because again, I don't know this place specifically. I do know that I know people who did clinical rotations there, who worked there. I'm not familiar with this space. I do know that the likelihood that there was rampant abuse in the space is high. Institutions, nursing facilities, mental institutions are some of the places with some of the most vulnerable people on earth. And abuse in them is rampant. So comparing middle manning at Whispers versus middle manning here, I think on the one hand, I was better equipped, literally equipped this time. I had my little headlamp and I filmed the entire thing. Like, you learn as you go. Again, I was more comfortable physically at Whispers. I didn't know what to expect from hearing Three Kings. So, like, there were some things that were surprising. The caretaker scared the shit out of me at one point. But it didn't... I had nerves, but I didn't feel... like, emotionally, I felt okay. Middle manning at the Sanatorium, I felt very not okay. And it was kind of a slow sink down into just kind of this, like, heartbreaking sadness. And it, the explanation for it could be just, I knowing too much about, conditions. It could be feeling connected to the people, finding the box of cards that, did they ever get to see them? Did they know that their families cared about them? Did they get these letters? Did they get these cards? Did they feel the connection to their family? Or it very well could have been something else, like the intent to draw in negative energy, to draw in these the entities. Could that be it? Yeah, totally could. All I know is that, like I said, that for the rest of the night, until, like, literally until I had slept and then woken back up, I was so sad. Even when I didn't feel sad, when everything felt reset and I was like, okay, like I'm with people, I'm safe, I just cried for hours on and off, which is unusual for me anyway. I don't know about anyone else, but it was definitely an uncomfortable experience. And I know that I have been the person who's been responsible for releasing Jazz from Three Kings both times. And at Whispers, you know, I went downstairs, Jasmine was talking, you know, it was very much like, haha, like we're done, everything's good, like let's get out of here, we'll debrief. And then going down into the tunnels after Three Kings this time, which again, like I'd heard Three Kings before, and if I hadn't, oh my god, this one was so intense. If I'd never heard it before, if I'd never experienced it before, I don't know how I'd have responded. The thing that I remember the most from it is just, there was one moment when Jasmine literally screamed, "Help me." And I know that that stopped me in my tracks, right? Because like the instinct to go and to help or save or fix or whatever, like, you know, you go through all what if she's really in trouble? What if something's gone wrong? What if there's someone else down there? What if something happened, you know? But also, you know, that whole, no matter what you hear, no matter what I say, no matter what you, like, no matter what happens, you cannot come down until the seance is over. You can't come down until they've, you know, gone through all of the steps they need to go through, or until like that timer goes off. Like there are only two like out options and neither one of them had been reached. But to have someone that you care about is like, again, if this was the first time I'd middlemanned, like I don't know, that was hard. And like everything was just really raw, and it felt and it sounded desperate, threatened. It was just really, it almost felt like there was more danger there. Yeah, when I went to release her from, literally from the chair, she was just limp, like head down, unresponsive, and I was like, oh no, we fucking killed her. Oh my god. I was so worried because like the last time, like she was talking and like there was, you know, it was response, and like this time was just, it had obviously taken so much out of her, and oh my god, like a little wrung out cloth. But you know, there's so much responsibility in doing Three Kings that like you have to be really prepared to do, and it's like we pulled cards for it both times, right? And both times Jasmine was Three Kings and I was middleman, and I have never been so grateful whatever is guiding those decisions did not pull me for Three Kings, because I do not know that I would be equipped to do it, and I think the cards know that too. So much spit! That was so, like, I think that was the most unsettling part listening to it, was like, how much spit is in you? Like, I couldn't spit that much if I wanted to. Like,
what the fuck?
After Three Kings, after I untied Jazz and like got her to be able to stand up, poor thing, very slowly got her out of the tunnels to the car, and just to a light. That was a big thing. I went in, retrieved the rest of the group, because they were just kind of like exploring at that point, but like we really needed to be able to reset and, one, debrief, and two, get Jazz back to like, not normal, because I don't think there's like a level of normal immediately after that, but like up to where we felt like she was okay. Gave her an Uncrustable and some water. Oh my god, so much water. She took the Uncrustable. She's like, this tastes like gravel. I'm like, well, you're gonna eat it, so just go for it. But yeah, just like hearing just like those little snippets of like, this is what I remember, this is what I remember, this is what, you know, these things were, where does this line up? Where does this, you know, what did this experience look like for each kind of group? And so we get kind of reset, head back to the main office building, sit down, listen to Three Kings, listen to the seance, get everyone kind of, because like when you're doing it, I don't think you realize how physically exhausting everything is until afterwards, and you're just like, oh my god. Like getting Jordan to eat something after running a spirit box, getting Jazz to eat and drink, getting, you know, everyone kind of rehydrated and some calories in them, because like it takes a lot out of you, especially if you're one of the people who's like really a conduit or a connector, right? Like there's a lot of energy that you're putting into it that you then need to replace. But yeah, just listening to everything, and even without like video, just listening to it, immediately afterward, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that thing, this is where I was when that happened, or wow, like I couldn't hear any of the seance, so like occasionally we would hear a bit of Jazz through the seance audio, and I'd be like, oh, okay, like that's where that lines up, and just like kind of seeing how everything kind of sandwiches almost, right? Where it is I think one of the most interesting parts of it afterwards. But it was hard to listen to. And I guarantee that it was very hard to experience. I wish that I personally had been prepared emotionally for how I was going to feel, or that I had maybe brought someone else to drive me home or something, like driving there myself and then driving back home. I think that was probably the hardest part, was feeling so emotionally connected and drained, and then having to get myself home, because when we went to Whispers, like I carpooled, so it was really nice to be able to just kind of let go and relax on the way home. But this one, being by myself, and then also not having any signal, that was the weirdest thing, actually. I didn't have cell phone signal for about the first 45 minutes of the drive home. I had to restart my phone entirely just to be able to do anything on it. And it's not that rural. Like, I shouldn't have needed to do that. So that was very weird, actually. So I just drove in silence for a while before I was like, all right, fuck this. I'm just gonna restart my phone, and that fixed it. But I don't know what that was. I think if you're going to go yourself, do take advantage of the tour and maybe start earlier in the day. Like, get a feel for the campus, get a feel for what the baseline is, right? Because you want to be able to compare afterwards. So I was really glad that when we were talking about doing this setup and like they'd kind of decided who would be where, we did go and do a walkthrough. This is what this looks like during the day. This is where everything is. This is how it feels during the day, so that you can see, okay, this is the baseline. This is my basis for comparison. What does this look like at night? Because it's really easy, right, to spook yourself in the dark. It's really easy to freak yourself out. But if you know, okay, what part of the floor is mushy? What part is, what am I going to potentially trip on? What does this look like, feel like, sound like during the day? You're more prepared for being there at night. Best investment I made, hands down, was a headlamp. Having my hands free so I didn't have to carry around a flashlight, and having like a really wide range of light was so nice. I also made sure that I had a battery backup for my phone with a cord that was long enough so that I could put the power pack in my pocket and then have the cord up to my phone so I could use the phone the whole time. Because like, if your phone dies, or if you run out of battery, or like if you're just suddenly like, oh, I was recording but then it stopped because of like just electronic malfunction, like you lose a lot. So just by having some really basic, really easy stuff to like just toss in your bag made my life so much easier. I also made sure that I had some like really easy to eat food, like, because they were like, oh, we're gonna have sandwiches and like fruit snacks and stuff. I was like, I'm bringing Uncrustables and like little bags of nuts, like just super easy, fast protein afterwards, just like easy calories. Yeah, it's a lot of the stuff is stuff you wouldn't, like if you saw it, you're like, yes, great, but you wouldn't necessarily think of it in advance. So talk to people who've done things like this before, ask them their recommendations, or even just like people who do like different types of exploration. Like, talk to your friends who go on hikes. They know what to take if you're going to be in the dark, or if you're going to be like somewhere more rural or in the wilderness or whatever. Like, just make sure that you have, camera, phone, headlamp. I do wish that we had like film cameras. I know they're old-fashioned, but I think you see some really interesting things on film that you don't necessarily get with digital. But yeah, and like I know that I have learned things both times that I've gone, like, oh wow, this would have made my life easier, this would have made my life easier. So I took what I learned from Whispers, rolled it into this. I'm like, okay, great, I made my life easier in these ways. What would make it even better next time? And it's just like building on that. but I'm really looking forward to what we do next. As long as you're not like, we're going back to the Sanatorium, in which case I'd be like, all right, look, please. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.